Okay, so welcome to our closing session. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from three CEOs that have really been thought partners and creative thinkers and activists in this whole domain. And you'll hear some of their stories and some of their courageous work, so some of their reflections on this conference, and some of their images of the future of this work. And I'll introduce each of those in a second. But first, I want to introduce Phil Mirvis. Phil and Sandra Waddock were two colleagues that helped me co-create the concept paper for this whole global forum. We had many phone calls and so on, and Phil has been a leader in this field for many years, a very, very talented executive educator, takes CEOs around the world to immerse themselves in some of the global challenges of our day, helps them learn experientially, works at the very, very senior levels of our corporations in that regard. And he's one of the most, gifted creative people in this field. And I've asked Phil to put together a few thoughts and reflections on insights from this conference.
Thank you, David. Thanks to Sandra, and thanks to all of you. I am an artifact from 2006. Attended the conference, got excited. My colleague Brad Googans and Steve Rockin and I redid our book on Beyond Good Company with a different emphasis and a different zeal as we discovered Bob. Now, as an artifact, I can speak to some of the old stuff, so let me start with a quick one. How many remember Benjamin in The Graduate? What did they say to Benjamin? Plastics. So last night, at our cocktail party, what were people saying? Polymers. 5 of them. What else? Biomimicry. What else? Solar. What else? Nature. Coming home. Spirituality. Water. Light, air, sustainability, and so on. Now, Gunther Stent, philosopher of science, says many ideas are ahead of their time, but few are unique. Many ideas are ahead of their time, few are unique. What David, Ron, the all assembled here bring is a cornucopia of ideas from different fields, different frameworks, etc., all emerging together. The key message I'm taking away from 2009 is, now is the time. Let me draw just a few parallels and some differences between 2006 and this second gathering, 2009. First one, what was the key message in 2006? What are we here for? Revolutionary renewal. Business is the engine of growth. Let's just give it some new purposes. What's the message in 2009? Reset. Reset. Is business the engine of growth? What kind of growth? What kind of business? This time, there's business talking with government, talking with NGOs, talking with citizens groups, talking with thousands of hybrid organizations, as Sandra reminds us. Every one of us is in this game, this new game, this reset game. And secondly, we're not just talking about new purposes. We're talking about essential purposes. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Second, in 2006, the emphasis was on new ideas, new tools, the next thing. Here, perhaps it's my own aging, I'm listening with a different ear. I'm hearing some talk about the origins of abductive thinking. I'm reminded of John Dewey in some conversations with Art as Experience. Peter Drucker in Timeless Wisdom is presented in front of us. Maybe there is something not just to the next new thing, but timeless wisdom that we're being reminded of here. The management schools, at least the part that's not in full contrition, has resurrected Mary Parker Follett, who said it's not just business here and society here, it's the same thing. We see Russ Ackoff. If only we could have also seen Don Michael, passed away recently. Wrote about the unprepared society in the 1960s. Wrote the book Learning to Plan and Planning to Learn, where he talked about failure as being an inevitability of our human constructions. And are we designing our experiences to learn from them? And wrote about technology as an art form. Another timeless sage who isn't here anymore, but whose spirit lives on, is Willis Harman. I can remember meeting Willis at an early program here at Case Western Reserve on this new thing called Appreciative Inquiry. Our young graduate student, Dave Cooperrider, welcomed him in and acknowledged his timeless contribution. We've also learned about the wisdom of geckos, cuttlefish, and trees. So one of the things I'm taking away from 2009 is that wisdom bridge between the new ideas and the timeless wisdom, between the gray hairs among us here and the kids, that wisdom bridge. Now let me tell you, if this was 1967 and Benjamin walked into a room like this on a college campus, it would look just like this. What are we doing, OD? Getting a group of people together, brainstorming, and fixing the problem. 2006, walked into this room, we're getting a group of people together, thinking positive thoughts and making things better. 2009, we're getting a group of people together, brainstorming again, and what are we doing? Prototyping the new. Yes, indeed, design is the new management. We're all doing design thinking, but this is a tool. Remember the quote of Abraham Maslow? Give a kid a hammer, finds everything needs pounding. With these tools, we do. And we've had a lot of conversation about do-do. So how do you turn it into music? As I watched this session, as I talked to people, as I saw the animation in life, I saw being. The self as instrument. Why are we here? And bringing that to life. Smile, argument, hope, gesture. Even as we pay attention to tools to advance our systems and technologies and so on, pay also attention to being and how we can be ourselves. Music, art, ethics, doobie-doo. Last point, scale is new. A lot of conversation about scale. What percentage of increase do we have in carbon in the atmosphere? What percentage of reduction in poverty around the world? Many of you know that the number of people living on 2% a day, or $2 a day, has decreased about 20% in the last 3 years. Why aren't we doing victory laps? One reason is because the number of people in poverty is now larger than the population of the world in 1900. That's the difference Peter Senge reminds between ratios and scale. What percentage here are from the academy as a student, faculty member? What percentage from business or government There's a new ratio here. Hypothesis number one, of course, is we've exhausted all the academics that are interested in this subject. Or hypothesis number two, that the interest and fire and zeal among the business community is growing. I'm not interested in ratios. I'm interested in scale. Last conference, I was interested in sustainability, getting to zero. This conference, we've got the idea of thrivability. Now here's a challenge I'll leave for the panel. Last conference, it was a great pleasure to see Patrick Sesko come up and talk about the achievements of Unilever, and they've done a great job. Now on scale, many companies are moving to not only get to zero, but on that thrivability dimension, increase and improve. When I talked to Patrick Sesko in 2004 about these ideas, the reaction was, well, go out and do a study. So we had about 500 executives involved in fact-finding. Tex Gunning, leader of the business in Asia, enlisting the best ideas within the company and going beyond. Suddenly a parade began to unfold within Unilever. And Patrick's job was to run to get in front of the parade. And when you watched him here, you could see him confident and excited because he'd caught up to his organization. Now, imagine if business leaders were leading the parade. And all of us were having to run to catch up to them. Whether it's the business school dean, the business executive, the government official, we're running to catch up to them. So leaders, lead. Thank you.
All right. A great poet as well as a great educator. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Beech. Tom has been an incredible thought partner in the design of this summit. Dave Slider from Fetzer Foundation, Fetzer Institute, and each of these next speakers came together as CEOs of their respective entities and said, let's make this happen. Let's get and make this happen and make it a very, very important learning process. Tom, and we'll say a little bit about Fetzer, but Fetzer's interest, they've been on the creative edge for many, many years. I remember, looking at their documentary series on the life of the mind and the power of the mind, and their work in healthcare and other kinds of domains. And their mission is around love and forgiveness and compassion. And it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Beech to share his reflections and his hopes.
Thank you, David. It's more than a little daunting to offer one person's reflection on these last 2 days, especially in view of the explosion of creativity that we've all just experienced. So please accept what I'm saying is one small addition to the good of the cause. As David mentioned, I'd like to begin by saying a little bit about Fetzer's mission and its work. And it's not easy. We are not an easy organization to explain. I'll share a short story with you. I was at a meeting in Chicago a couple of years ago, primarily with people in the business community, and I found myself at lunch at a table with a group of investment bankers who were all talking among themselves. I was the only non-investment banker at the table. They were all talking among themselves about their work and about their world and their ideas. And then one of the guy sitting next to me, turned to me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Tom Beech." And he said, "Where do you work?" And I said, "The Fetzer Institute." And he said, "What does the Fetzer Institute do?" And I said, well, the Fetzer Institute's mission is to foster awareness of the power of love and forgiveness in the emerging global community. And there was a sort of a stunned silence. And then he collected himself and he said, "Terrific. How's it coming?" So I'm going to try to do just a little better job of explaining us to you than I did to him. All of our work focuses, as David said, on the power of compassion and caring and love and forgiveness. And it rests on our understanding, all of us understanding deeply what it is that drives us, what motivates us. It rests on our understanding that who we are influences what we do, that there's a link between our inner life, our sense of self, and our work in the world. Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. We like to add a corollary to that, which says that the unexamined life ought not to be inflicted on others. Our work falls into three main arenas, and I'll just go through them very quickly. We support research exploring the impact of love and forgiveness and compassion on individual and organizational and community life. Second, we work with people and organizations in such fields as leadership development, peace building, organizational and community development, who believe, as we do, that compassion and love and forgiveness have the power to heal, the power to transform the most difficult, troubled situations into something that is generative and affirming and life-giving. In the third area, we lift up stories of compassion and caring and forgiveness through films and documentaries and publications and use of the web to bring this subject, which tends to be marginalized, at least in Western society, into everyday public dialogue. Much of our work involves convening, bringing together people and organizations that are working in these arenas who are attempting to build networks with and across disciplines. And this is why we're so honored to be supporting this conference, to work with David and his colleagues at the Weatherhead School and Case Western, with Chuck and Rodrigo, and with all of you, because you are building a network, or perhaps a series of networks, that has the courage to ask very important and very difficult questions. You're taking the business model or the business logic or the notion of business opportunity beyond profitability and growth to the well-being of all living things. And this is rooted, in my opinion, in the power of caring, compassion, empathy, and love. This, of course, also has relevance for fields far beyond simply the business field. I've heard you express this in the last couple of days in a number of ways. David offered the notion that business logic is doing well. Bill McDonough posed the question, how do we love all the children of all species for all time? And Bruce Mao added his question, how can we move from fear to possibility? It's profoundly important that speakers here have defined business purpose in terms of such things as eradicating extreme poverty, building peace, undercutting the roots of terror, eliminating the sex trade and child slavery. Now, this has been a monumental learning experience, I think, for all of us, yielding more ideas than at least I can assimilate at this point. But I'd like to share just a few themes and ideas and questions that have touched me in the last 2 days. First, the notion of the design mind and its application to sustainability is especially significant because it opens to us the importance of holding conflicting ideas and paradox in creative tension. It highlights the importance of relationships or interrelationships. It distinguishes between a design attitude and a decision attitude. And offers support for the notion of finding alternatives, living in the ongoing cycle, which we participated, all of us, in the last couple of days, of prototyping, feedback, and analysis. It balances economy, equity, and ecology. It asks how questions and why questions, and deep questions such as what is our intention as a species? What does it mean to be indigenous to place? How do I let go? How do I learn to know better? I love the notion that we fail our way to success. Some of you are old enough to remember that this is an idea that Lewis Thomas of Sloan Kettering offered many years ago, when he said we were wired for mistakes. And if we weren't wired for mistakes, we would never get anything useful done. We've even been treated to a new definition of asphalt. Those of you who heard it, it's two words referring to blame. Another theme of interrelationship and wholeness has been centered to much of our dialogue. Ken Gergen offered the notion that everything we take to be true, real, and valuable comes from relationships. There is no intrinsic value unless there are relationships. My ideas only have life through a relationship with you. And this reminds me of the African idea of Ubuntu, that I only exist through you and in you. Our lives are inextricably linked, and we are part of one human family. Janine Bennis last night carried this idea one turn further, very poetically, describing how there is no boundary between us and nature. We are nature, and we live in a natural system governed of all things by generosity. We've been treated to some provocative word pairs: dominance and nurturing, growth, health of the whole, fear, possibility, isolation, collaboration, predator, steward. Several of the afternoon workshops and the CEO panel reminded us that the process of being of world benefit begins inside our own firms and organizations, and indeed in our closest relationships. There's a direct relationship between what we propose to do in the world and who we are in our own organizations. Jeffrey Sachs called us to an awareness that we are at a time of profound choice. We have the choice to have the potential to end poverty and to create a grand future of sustainable development, or we will be the last generation on Earth to live a viable life. Peter Senge echoed this, citing 2012 as the watershed year. So the questions on the table are: what's important? What's worth doing? What do we really want? What would it mean to commit ourselves to the well-being of all living things? We're at an exceptional window of opportunity in human history, when people across generations and organizations across sectors can come together to actually save the world. Isabel started us off this morning with a poem of her own. I'd like to share a poem with you in closing by Naomi Shihab Nye. The poem is called Shoulders. A man crosses the street in the rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him, no car drive too near to his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say, "Fragile, handle with care." His ear fills up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide, and the rain will never stop falling. What gives me hope is that you hear the child's breathing, and you share his dreams, and you have the courage to weather the rain and carry us across the road. Thank you.
Wow. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Rodrigo Loures. Many of you have heard me speak about Rodrigo. If I had one word to characterize Rodrigo's impulse, it's the impulse of wholeness. And he lives that theme more than any other person I've met. Several years back, as he called and he said, David, I want to shut down our whole factory, bring together all 1,500 people. We want to bring the community, we want to bring the mayor, and have about 2,000 people to plan the future of my corporation. I'd never been part of anything like that, and it was just amazing, and it led me to start thinking about the power of wholeness. What happens when we begin to feel that sense of the whole? And we were in a conversation later with some other CEOs when he was sharing his stories of his company's rapid success. And people were talking about, well, what you're talking about is social responsibility for the whole. And they struggled with that language. They said it's not, the word responsibility isn't quite it. And Rodrigo said, I think it's intimacy with the whole. As a CEO, I think it's intimacy with the whole, and that word changes everything. Anyway, help me welcome and thank you, Rodrigo, for your strong support and your spirit and your energy for this work.
Thanks, David. Well, more than 40 years ago, I took my graduation in business administrations in the Fundação Getúlio Vargas de São Paulo in partnership with Michigan State University. And after having my graduation, I came back to my city, Curitiba, and started our local university, the Federal University of Paraná, the first school in business in Paraná, where I became teacher. And so for almost 5 years, I had the privilege to prove myself as a teacher, as a professor in classroom in this issue of business. Well, after that, with some friends, we found our company, Nutrimental Foods, and I focused my life in this project of creating a health company. Since 2001, I am involved with BAWB program. I were in Baltimore in October of 2001. And I became very committed with this concept of creating a process, a framework, able to foster the business activities in a way aligned with social and environmental requirements. And we learned a lot of that. And so I would thank David, Ron Fry, Ilma Barros. Ilma Barros has been working closely with me all this time. And since 2003, I'm at the head of the Brazilian Paraná Federation of Industries, and also vice president of the National Confederation of Industries. And I personally, very committed with this challenge of education and innovation. So for me, this conference is very important in my search for personal understanding and development as a manager, as an educator, as a businessman, but mostly as an apprentice. Is apprentice in English? It's a learner, apprentice. Okay, about this conference. It is my understanding after this week here, and very much in line with what I have been involved with in my life and as an entrepreneur, is that organizations are based on relationships, on meaningful relationships. From what I have learned from our conversations during these 2 days and presentations here, it's that relationships are what design is all about. I'm convinced on that. Design has to do with to view and to organize spaces or forms, fashions to attend how can better the relationships and make relationships feasible. I see that we do have a lot to learn from design and from inspired and inspiring designers as we could the privilege to have in this conference. It became clear to me where and how the design culture and perspective brings new and a refreshing air to management theory and practice. The humble attitude of a designer attempting to grasp and understand the situation he is faced with is perhaps the one single virtue I would like to point out as necessary in our business conversation. I agree with Richard Boland and his view that we cannot continue to train people as if they were passive receivers, accepting the world as is. As designers, we would look for ways to change, to improve the world we live in order to honor our profession as managers, as educators. And to confirm my view, I would present you in October of 2006, I participated in the first BAWB Global Conference, and I left the conference with the mission to organize a regional conference, a BAWB Global Forum Conference in Latin America. And we succeed on doing that. We had 4 big sessions involving more than 2,000 people from university, from business, from government area, from civil society. And we emerged from this AI sessions with a more clear vision what to do in Brazil and in Latin America. Actually, we triggered a process that is in movement, and there are already many events scheduled to happen not only in Brazil but in all Latin America, Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Santiago in Argentina. So it shows that it's it's not only feasible, this process, but also that the world is calling for initiatives like this one. So I would present the outcome from the Latin American work on this issue. Video.
Thousands of people, various sectors of society, different Brazilian states, more than 60 concrete actions proposals, a single objective, rethinking business education with a focus on sustainability.
A educação é uma questão central, a educação de qualidade é mais central ainda. A educação daqueles que vão liderar os negócios é mais central ainda. Por isso, eu me aventuro a dizer de que este encontro é da maior importância, é fundamental.
This dialogue started 8 years ago when the UN proposed to the worldwide business community a set of universal principles on human rights, work, and environment. 2 years later, the Case Western Reserve University Business School in Cleveland, Ohio, created the BAWB movement to encourage business to become agents of world benefit. In 2004, the UN Global Compact's development plan is created in New York. Education becomes a priority among the strategic actions. The movement became the largest voluntary citizenship initiative on the planet. In 2006, during the first BAWB Global Forum in Cleveland, business leaders talked about executive education alignment. Cooperation between the business world and the academy was strengthened with the purpose of creating effective actions for global sustainable development. The Global Forum Latin America comes to Brazil. Held in Curitiba, it was the first regional meeting resulting from those talks. Members of the academy and the business world share their experiences. As a result, 80 proposals to promote education advancement and to train new leaders and managers emerged. The actions begin to be implemented in meetings called Call for Action. The first one took place in Curitiba. Then it was São Paulo's turn. In 2009, the Call for Action was in João Pessoa, Paraíba. The meetings turned out more than 60 concrete actions that connected education, business, and sustainability. After the South, the Southeast, and the Northeast, the Global Forum Latin America will be taken to other regions. These meetings expanded and strengthened the Brazilian initiatives for sustainability. The proposals of the Global Forum Latin America are now being presented in Cleveland as a contribution to the great world debate.
Well, there has been an exciting experience to be engaged in this process with all our staff. We are hundreds of people engaged in this program in Brazil. And in order to give an organized report, I wrote a book, and I distributed this book in CD that synthesizes all the contributions we are having in this Brazilian and South American process. And mainly I would point out the contribution of Humberto Maturana. When I wrote the book last year, in order to have a basic document for the participants to understand and the whole process, I asked Maturana to him comment the book, his opinion sobre the book, and he had the initiative to make an outstanding, I say an outstanding comments, because through his comments we can understand what is his point of view about this challenge of the emergence, a new kind of organization and a new kind of attitude and methods how to run business in a sustainable way. Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity.
One of our groups in the report out said we need to make sure that we have some real models, businesses to really showcase what they're doing and so on. And one of those models is right here in our area, and it's Fairmount Minerals. They've been ranked the #1 corporate citizen in the United States a couple years ago, about 2 years after they launched their very deep and serious effort in the sustainability domain. And Chuck Fowler is the CEO of Fairmount Minerals, and just a long time, great learning relationship between our two institutions for many years. I can't even remember how many years, since about 1988. Okay. And in response to that invitation to have companies that are doing things in a new way, I have to say, if there's any chance for any of you to visit Fairmount Minerals, I would do it, because you feel like you're entering into the future reality, and it's alive, I just love being in sessions in their strategic planning where they invite protest groups into the room, NGOs that have, and so on, with the idea that we are going to create the future together. In one of the sessions, they were looking at the major global issues of our day, and a sand loader operator in one of the groups said, one of our strengths is our fine silica sand. How about all the putrid water in the world and all the children and families not having clean water? And they prototyped using some ideal methods. They prototyped on the spot a water filter that later became an incredible innovation, less than $10, filters the water, has no moving parts, can't break, and thousands of families are now using that. But what you see in that organization in terms of the future feeling is that I see this turning on the entire workforce more than any other kind of theme that we've ever had in our field. There was the quality revolution, this and that. But Chuck Fowler's courageous, he's pragmatic, he gets things done, and his company is one of those examples that we've been spotlighting and the reason for the existence for this project. Chuck Fowler.
And we can't be outdone with all of your great displays and so forth, so I have a small display of SiO2. I'll explain that in a second. Thank you very much for being here, first of all, and thank you very much for your participation. It's been a fantastic time, and really appreciate it as a follow-up to the 2006 summit. One of the things we do at Fairmount Minerals is that we always begin every presentation with a little safety message. The mining industry, safety is an incredibly important aspect of what we do. So, you're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to give you a safety message like we would any other time. And this one is going to be pertinent to you because you're about to finish this process of the last 3 days and about ready to start your travels home. And of course, the primary safety message is please travel safely. Make sure that you are able to get home to your loved ones after this great opportunity. But more specifically, one of the things that we've been focusing on the last couple of months is texting and driving. Thou shalt not text and drive. 2,500 deaths occurred in the United States last year due to texting and driving. And I'm sure you've all had your frustrations with those other drivers around you who seem to be less intent on what's happening and so forth. So pull over, stop, wait. 5 years ago, we didn't have this issue anyway. So, progress is here, but you don't really have to just because it started to vibrate on your belt to go figure out who it is or what's going on. So please, either put it in the back seat or put it in your briefcase, but don't text and drive while you're driving. That's your safety message for the day. Well, Fairmount Minerals is a mining company, and apparently from the other night's reception, we're not one of Gunther's favorite industries. Felt like we need to be put out of business, and I can understand that from a sustainability standpoint. So it's a little bit of an oxymoron for a mining company to be holding itself out as a sustainability company. But we do produce high purity silica sand. It goes into the glass industry, foundry, oil and gas extraction, and water filtration, to name a few of the industries. We've got 18 locations. We have in North America and Canada and Denmark, and including Mexico. And we really began our appreciative inquiry journey first, back in the early 90s. And we used appreciative inquiry as a way of accomplishing some cultural things that we wanted to do in our company. And it worked extremely well. I had the great pleasure of taking the EMBA program at Case Western when I first came to the Cleveland area. And Dr. Cooperrider, and actually Ron was too, was one of our professors, and introduced us to the appreciative inquiry process, which really fit us very, very well, and we have been using ever since as a management tool and as a corporation tool. So then we started focusing appreciative inquiry on our sustainability effort in the 2000s. And we all got together utilizing the appreciative inquiry style of getting everybody in the room, of not only everybody in our company, but also our other stakeholders and so forth. And that's where SiO2 came from. I know you all are very intelligent. You know that this is the chemical numeration for silica dioxide. But in sustainability, this means sustainability in our organization. So it's a way for us to remember it, and it's a way for us to continue to focus on sustainability as we go through our company's programs. A couple of other things that came out of that first summit that were incredibly important and have continued to be alive with us and sustainable is that we agreed to make all decisions based on the 3 Ps: people, planet, and prosperity. Now, it was very important for us to do that. And it was very important for all of us to agree that that's what we're going to do, that we're going to make every decision on the 3 Ps of people, planet, and prosperity. The old triple bottom line, et cetera. And we chose prosperity because it was inclusive, much more inclusive than just profit. prosperity for everyone, whether, thank you. We also came up with another slogan, again, because slogans are things that you can hang on to, then we can develop and so forth. I mean, all of us have a mission statement, but it's very difficult for us all to get up and rattle off what the mission statement is. So we boiled it down to do good, do well. Now, it's not exactly normally the way you hear that. You normally hear do well, do good. There's an incredible difference between do well, do good, and do good, do well. First of all, we haven't got time to wait to do well before we start doing some good. None of us have got time for that. The world doesn't have time for that. We've got to get going on it now. We've got to start doing good immediately. And the beautiful part of it is as you do good, you actually can do well. And they're not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, they really enhance each other. So that's our slogan of our company. We understand what that means from our mission. It understands what we are trying to accomplish of doing good, doing well. And at our last summit, we're enhancing our sustainability and focusing on the future. And we've established some additional teams, so we now have 14 teams with a number of sub-teams at each one of our locations that are focused on doing good and doing well and focused on our sustainability. You can find all this out on our website, which is www.fairmountminerals.com, and Fairmount is M-O-U-N-T. And also on there is our 2008 UN Global Compact report. We were the first member in Northeast Ohio of the UN Global Compact, and we do report and have reported the last number of years. So you're welcome to go online, see what our report has to say about what we are doing, and you are absolutely welcome to steal any ideas you would like to do. This is not something we want to keep in patent. This is something we want to spread around. As a matter of fact, one of our goals is that we are going to be a missionary of sustainable development. And we go around giving a number of presentations, and I'm probably going to kick myself for making this statement, but and we do probably at least 20 to 25 a year, and we are, you're welcome to ask us for any help, et cetera, as you can. You may not get me, you probably get somebody that can actually do and knows a lot more about it within our company. And a few of our missionaries are back here in the back room, so thank you all. One of the things that we find when we talk to businesses about sustainability and we talk about what we are doing and how it works is the typical, somewhat business response is, well, how can you afford to do all that? How does it pay? I mean, how can you pay for this? Sustainable development effort and so forth, of having people volunteering on company time and making these contributions and working with your customers and your neighbors, et cetera. We don't, my first response to that, and all of our first responses is, first of all, it's the right thing to do, which ought to be enough, and let's move on to something more interesting. But the reality is then we do need to explain to our business friends that it does pay. And there are incredible numbers of examples that we're not going to go through today, but again, you can pick a lot of those up off of our website, because sustainability absolutely pays. It pays currently, and it certainly pays in the long run. And we look at, and those are the things that we try to focus on with our teams. Let me give you a quick example. I will give you a quick example. We have a wellness team. And most industries and businesses have a group that tries to look after the wellness of their employees, et cetera. But our wellness team is not only, it has a core group, and then also it has each plant location. Well, just a quick result is, since 2005, our per employee healthcare costs have gone down by 20%. Since 2005, our costs per employee have gone down 20%. This is during a period of time that healthcare costs have gone up 38%. So this is not just a 20% savings, it's much more than that. And it's absolutely, totally due to the wellness team and all of the things that they've done with all of our employees of understanding what needs to be done to help make their life better. So it does pay. And some of the things that we look at from our do-good standpoint, and people will say, well, that's just a do-good project. David was talking about the water program that we work with a number of partners of getting water filtration systems out to the rest of the world. We say, well, hey, that's a do-good project, but how are you going to do well on that? Well, very honestly, we look at that just as BAWB would, is that it's our research project. We're in the sand business, and we produce sand for water filtration. We're also in the coating business. So we have the technology to be able to put any kind of a coating on that sand that we need to for whatever market or product we want to do. Water filtration and water, we absolutely know, is going to become one of our big markets and big businesses in the years to come around the world, absolutely, and we want to be a part of that. What better way to get research and understand what the needs are going to be in the future than be working in every part of the world, testing the water in every part of the world, and finding out what it is that we need to be able to take out of that water to make it healthy and potable for our friends and our neighbors of the rest of the world, which we then can make a business out of, and we can provide that and make a little money on the side. So there's nothing wrong with all of that. So that's why we look at it and how we look at that. 2006 at the Global Forum here, at the end of it, close to the end of it, David had a group of CEOs that got together with a group of deans. And, that got around to the question from the deans, went to the deans about, well, do you have social responsibility or social entrepreneurship in any of your curriculums? And they all kind of looked at each other and said, no, we don't. And, business, jumped on, well, why not? We need that. We need that into our generation of young people who are coming up for us to work with and so forth. Why aren't you guys doing that? And their response was, because you aren't paying for it. And you're not paying for it in a lot of ways. You're not paying for it either in writing a check, but you're not paying for it in demand. You're not demanding it from the students or from your hires. You're not paying for it from the standpoint of giving them a higher wage rate because they've been focused and have some training in social entrepreneurship. So a number of us sat back and said, okay, so we got an education issue here. We got a communication problem. So that's where certainly our company stepped in and said, we need to step up to the plate, and got involved with Case Western and certainly with David Cooperrider of getting that instilled into Case Western University. And we challenged many of our other companies and industries around the country, and you know who they are, you know who your business partners are with each of your schools, and you need to work that issue with them. Because the reality is, the Generation Y kids and young people that are coming up, they get it. They know it. They know it. They want to do it, and they want to work for companies that have a social responsibility. And they want to be going to a school that's got social entrepreneurship and social responsibility in the curriculum. So all of us need to serve that customer, because they are our customer. All of us need to serve that customer, and you guys all need to train them, educate them, and we as industry need to be able to offer that opportunity to them as they come into the workforce and to expand their opportunity in that area. And that next generation that was talked about in a couple of presentations ago, they are the ones who are going to carry us through to the sustainable world. So I really embark on you that we've got to be able to do that. So what's next? We have to change the business schools to include social entrepreneurship, social responsibility in the curriculum, sustainability. We've got to change business to understand that it's important and our people want it. They want to be involved. And really, I guess we'll get down to, we've got to stop pitching and start a thrive-evolution. Thank you.
So I just want to thank the three of you, and everybody, please know that this would not be possible without these three leaders, both for their example, their commitment, their thought partnership. Thank you so much for the partnership and the long-term journey with this work. I want to kind of move to some reflection stage, but oh, okay. Thank you. The other thing I want to thank you for, and you can hear it in their voices and in their eyes and so on, but is the inspiration. Three things come to mind: inspiration, hope, and joy. You know, when I work with this group, I see the joy in this work. I see the inspiration in their lives. I see the sense of hope. And the reason I'm so personally affected by that, just a quick story. I do think these three ingredients are so important. My son decided he wanted to study environmental science, and he went to Middlebury College, great environmental studies program, and he had a very hard time, you know, as a freshman there, very, very hard time. You know, and he had a professor that kind of ended each session almost like a newscaster has their phrase, and this isn't meant to be funny. Sometimes I say it wrong and it comes out funny, but literally after every class, the professor would close the book and say, "So there you have it, we're screwed." And every class ended that way. And Matthew called me and he said, "Dad, you know, what am I supposed to do with this?" He said, "You know, we learned today that by 2050, 50% of the Earth's species are predicted to be extinct." He said, "What am I supposed to do with that statistic?" You know? And so what did I do? I fed him stories. I fed him stories of Fairmount and all the other kinds of stories that I had. I gave him film clips of Bill McDonough. And that professor told Matthew, when he raised his hands to share these solutions, he said, "Sorry, son," or Matthew, "too little, too late. Too little, too late." And so I just, as a father, and knowing what our young people are growing up with, I do applaud you all and thank you for the inspiration, hope, and joy that we're going to need as we begin to get and move into our future here. Just a few thoughts. You know, our hope was to juxtapose the design mind and the life that can bring to this whole domain, and I think we experienced that. And part of that is because of the language. You know, you heard Janine Benyus about everything was life-centric. It's all about inquiry into what gives life, and Ken Gergen's notion that what's important is the ever-expanding domain of relatedness. It was one of the phrases that he uses, that everything we take to be good and true and possible and beautiful is built through our relationships and through our communal conversations and so on. And the thing that I would add to that is that what we're discovering in organizations like these is that organizations are fundamentally centers of human relatedness, and relationships come alive where there's an appreciative eye, where people take the time to see the true, the good, the better, the possible in each other, and lift that up in ways that make the capacity of the system evolve and grow in that co-evolutionary kind of way. And people have said, "David, you know, why is it that appreciative inquiry kind of whole system summits move and develop a momentum way beyond other momentum that we've seen?" And I think I have I've been reflecting on that, and I think it has to do with three facts about all human beings. And what are those three facts? And I think that if we hold these three facts up front in our leadership, we're going to be better leaders at all times. But what are those three facts? It's exceptionality, essentiality, and equality. Fact number one, exceptionality. I think this is absolutely true. Everybody in this room is an exception to the rule. You know, no one's been born like you before. No one ever will be born like you again. And to the extent that our management methods lift up the exceptionalities, then to that extent, the leadership is going to move, the resonance is going to be there. Too much of our leadership denies the exceptionality in the room and denies that exceptionality. So exceptionality is fact number one. Fact number two is essentiality. I think all of us as human beings, we have a need in whatever human group we're in, family, community, the business, the workplace, to be seen as essential. We don't have to be central, but we need to be seen and treated as essential. That is, we would be missed the next day and if we weren't there. And by definition, what appreciative inquiry tries to do is lift up the stories of the meaning and the contributions of each person. You noticed how we got started in this particular summit through appreciative inquiry interviews. We're lifting up the stories in your life and so on. So essentiality is fact number two. And fact number three is equality. I think all of us as human beings come into this world with a sense not only of that we need the right, but we have the responsibility to give full and equal voice to our visions of the better, of the possible, of our visions and dreams of a better world. And by definition, appreciative inquiry tries to create organizations that aren't in half voice, but full voice. And that's what I think gives the momentum to this kind of process. What I'd like to do is just pull up a few reflection questions, and just like we started, I'd like you to turn to the person next to you. If I could have a slide on just a few reflection questions. And just a quick conversation. As you reflect on the richness of this experience, all the learnings, was there a key insight or moment of learning for you that stands out as a learning that you're going to carry forward in the cells of your body? You know, it's the kind of learning that you said, this is a learning I'm going to carry forward. Your feelings about our work together, about our relationships, about our process with one another and how we work together. And then one big hope going forward. Just a couple-minute conversation with a partner, help them share, use your coaching skills, and just bring that, about a 5-minute conversation here.